Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 4:07. Council, any additions or deletions to today's agenda? I do have one, and it's just a change that item number 2 in camera. I'd like to change the wording to CAO draft contract. I think there's no reason not to disclose that to the public. And then obviously those matters will be discussed in camera. Anything further, Council? If not, administration?
None from administration.
Thank you. With that, I'll entertain a motion. Council? Councilor Stashik?
I'd like to move that council adopt a regular meeting of council agenda for July 14th, 2020 as amended.
Thank you, Councilor Stashik. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Seeing no one in queue, I'll call to question. All those in favor? That is passed unanimously. That'll bring us to our council minutes for adoption. Council, any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. From a member of council. Councilor Hawes.
I'd like to make the motion that we accept regular meeting of council minutes for June 16th, 2020, and the standing committee of council minutes for July 7th, 2020.
Thank you, Councilor Hawes. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any debate? Seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor? That passed unanimously. That brings us to our citizens' minute with council. Are there any, Ms. Anderson?
No.
Seeing none, that'll move us to our action items for this evening. 2019 consolidated financial statements of the town of Hinton, and I'll hand it over to our CAO, Ms. Olson.
Thank you, Your Worship. The 2019 consolidated financial statements are presented tonight for council's approval. Typically, and as noted in the report, they were received earlier in the year, completed earlier in the year. However, through COVID-19 pandemic, a delay was experienced in the completion of the audit. Present tonight is Ms. Fox to assist in answering any questions council may have on the statements, and as well to highlight anything that we wish to before council tonight. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Fox to take us through.
Thank you, Ms. Olson, and Chair through to Council. First off, I just want to thank Ms. Eason and Ms. Cox, our KPMG auditors, for being here with us tonight to answer any of Council's questions. I won't walk through all the attachments or statements. There was a lot of information presented, and I know it's a long agenda tonight. So I'm hoping that everybody will be prepared with their questions if they have them. Overall, the audit went well, although we were, as stated by Ms. Olson, we were delayed in bringing the statements forward due to a number of items such as COVID-19 pandemic and extended budget timelines and some conflicting priorities. I have lost my spot, sorry. The municipal financial statements presented by administration are based on zero-based budgets and will vary slightly if you're comparing this documentation back and forth. And I know that was a question that has come up in the past, so I just wanted to point that out. The reasoning for this difference in presentation is a requirement for council to present and approve a zero-based cash budget. So revenues minus expenditures equals zero, which is different with the accounting standards and requirements that are required for presenting audited financial statements. So this can seem confusing if you're trying to look back and forth. Things like principal loan payments and transfers to and from reserves are not considered within the same fashion on the audited income statements. For example, transfers to and from reserves are actual internal transactions that happen that are not external and reported within the audited financial statement. So if you're trying to compare back and forth, for an example, when we present a municipal budget and development services has an overall operating budget, which also includes a transfer to reserves to cover all projects. If you were comparing that number within the audited statements, it would be there would be no transfer to reserves included, so that would affect the number that is presented. So just to give you an idea of some of the differences that you might see. You are welcome at any time to make an appointment with me if you have those types of questions that might be discrepancies that seem confusing between the two. But I just want to assure you that the auditors are there, they're aware of our budgets, and making sure that the financials that are represented in the statements are truly representative of our financial position. The year-end financial statements that were presented to council in June on behalf of administration estimated a cash loss of about $90,000. That was due to unplanned expenditures. The audit adjustment at the end of the year actually brought this to a total of $115,000. And this will be seen within our unrestricted deficiency in the reserves, because those losses are actually losses above and beyond what we collected in cash, like taxation and other revenue. So those losses, because they're cash losses, have to be covered by a form of funding, and that is typically your reserve funding. So rather than taking it from a reserve specifically, it's shown in the reserve portion of the financials, and it's called an unrestricted deficiency. So just to give some clarity around there, typically we get questions around that. A good practice in that is each year when those losses occur, which isn't typical because typically most losses are forecasted and approved by council. Such in 2019 as we anticipated that there was going to be expenditures above and beyond the budget that we put in front of you. So we brought a report to council to approve some changes within operating to make sure those losses were covered. If we couldn't have done that, council would need to make a budget amendment and that would be adjusted. So sometimes there are unforeseen circumstances that put us in this position. What I would like to suggest is that during 2021 budget deliberations, that the total in the unrestricted deficiency so far of about $500,000 be looked at over the operating budget, and administration take that into account so we can recoup some of those losses through our budgeting. And that would be the approach that administration took into budget deliberations. So when that comes up, just to make you aware that that's what we would look to do. Other than that, I'm going to leave it at that and turn it over to council. If you have any questions in regards to the audited statements or the information that I presented, as we have the auditors here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Fox. Council, any questions? And if not, I would entertain a motion if that is the will of council. Councillor Waugh.
I move that council approve the 2019 consolidated financial statements of the town of Hinton as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Waugh. I'll speak to it quickly. Thank you to KPMG. Very, very thorough, and obviously the town of Hinton and those who are connected to this information. I think it's, there's not really much to add, and it's always nice to get good information in front of us. So that's really all I have to say. Anything further, council, regarding the motion on the floor? And if not, I'll call to question. One moment. That council approved the, it's gone now. The council approved the 2019 consolidated financial statements of the town of Hinton as presented. Council, all those in favor? That is passed unanimously. Council, anything further for this action item? And seeing none, thank you, Robin and Caitlin, for this, for what you presented. So, and with that, we'll move on to our second action item for this evening, Northwest Alberta Charging Network, and I'll hand it off to Sia Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. Council received this item at the July 7th Standing Committee meeting, during which committee recommended council approve that the town of Hinton supports the neighboring municipalities seeking to raise seed and grant funding and initiate a technical working committee for the partnership of a Northwest Alberta charging network. That the town of Hinton contributes seed funding of $5,000 to support the work of the technical working committee, with the funds coming from the economic development marketing budget. And further, that the town apply for the electric vehicle and alternative fuel infrastructure deployment initiative grant in collaboration with neighboring municipalities. These are tonight's recommended actions as well. To summarize the item, this is an opportunity to work with neighboring municipalities through a $5,000 contribution to the project. The result is involvement in a $2 million capital project benefiting regional tourism and environmental stewardship. The town of Edson has submitted a letter to the town of Hinton requesting our involvement as a regional collaborator for the Northwest Alberta Electric Vehicle Charging Network in support of securing a seed grant through an application. Mr. Vanna is here tonight to assist in answering any questions that council may have on this item, and with that, we welcome any questions that you may have.
Thank you, CAO Olson. Council, any questions for administration? Councillor Waugh.
I guess just to clarify, the $5,000 is from an existing budget, right? This is new money.
That's right, Councillor Watt. It's coming from the approved economic development budget.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Waugh. Councillor Haas.
So I'd like to make a motion that, and is this three separate, so to clarify, three separate motions, or is it just the one?
They can be.
Okay, they can, right. So I'd like to make the motion that council supports neighboring municipalities seeking to raise seed and grant funding and initiate a technical working committee for the partnership of a Northwest Alberta charging network, along with that the town of Hinton contribute seed funding of $5,000 to support the work of the technical working committee, with the funds coming from the economic development marketing budget. And lastly, that the town of Hinton apply for the electric vehicle and alternative fuel infrastructure deployment initiative grant in collaboration with neighboring municipalities. If I can speak to it. I think this is a great opportunity for our communities to work together on what I think is a really good project that brings more people, tourism. It's, brings it through our community, better access to people that have vehicles that need this type of resource as well. So I think it's a great collaboration, and I look forward to hearing, once the charging network has been put together, the committee to work on this. So, and I think the economic development marketing under that budget is a place for it to come. So I'll be speaking in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any questions or debate? I have no questions, just obviously a thank you to Mayor Zahara and the town of Edson, our administration. This is obviously a positive source, so nothing to add aside from what CAO Olson and Councillor Haas said. So this is something I'll strongly support. And Council, anyone else? And seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? And that passed unanimously. Thank you. Sorry, Ms. Anderson, I was not going to repeat that. Council, anything further for this item? And seeing none, that'll bring us to our third action item, Municipal Asset Management Program Grant. CAO Olson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Over the past couple of years, administration has been working to support Council's strategic plan key strategy to fully realize and resource the Town of Hinton Infrastructure Asset Management Program. The asset management program to date has included the development and approval of the asset management policy in May 2019 and the development of an asset management strategy in April 2020. The third phase is the creation of a detailed asset management plan, which will assist in annual planning and budgeting for the town as well as service delivery. The town has an opportunity to apply for funding to support our asset management work with up to 80% of the costs, up to $50,000 through that grant. The work that the town is undertaking is budgeted for 2020 to come in at $74,900, resulting in the town's ability to maximize that grant. The recommended action for this item supports the council resolution requirements of the grant application. So that's why it's worded as such. And that includes that council direct administration to apply for a grant opportunity from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Municipal Asset Management Program, that council direct administration to conduct the following activities in its proposed project submitted to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Municipal Asset Management Program to advance our asset management program, which includes asset management training, condition assessment protocol and life cycle framework development, asset management plan development, and further that council commit $24,900 from the 2020 approved long-term asset management planning 2020 to 2022 budget allocation toward the cost of this initiative. Once again, Mr. Van is on the call or on the Zoom meeting to assist in answering any questions that council may have on this opportunity.
Thank you, CEO Olson. Council, any questions for administration? And if not, I will entertain a motion. That is the will of council. Councillor Hawes.
I'd like to make the motion that council direct administration to apply for a grant opportunity from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Municipal Asset Management Program, and that council direct administration to conduct the following activities in its proposed project submitted to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Municipal Asset Management Program to advance our assessment management program. That's a lot of programs. Anyway, asset management training, condition assessment protocol, and life cycle framework development, asset management plan development, and the council commit $24,900 from the 2020 approved long-term asset management planning 2020-2022 budget allocation towards the cost of this initiative. If I may, take to it. You know, we've been moving along with this asset management. I think it's critical at this juncture with COVID and the budget constraints that we've had during it, to know that we are making good decisions on the assets that we have, what assets can remain untouched, and make sure that we're making good effective decisions that way. It's also an opportunity for grant funding. Of course, anytime we can access any grants to move our community forward with a program such as this, I think it's a great opportunity. So I'll be speaking in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Council, we have a motion on the floor, which is the recommended action. Any further debate or questions? I'll be speaking in favor of this. I think it's a great opportunity. It's 2 action items in a row. Our administration, our community, we're looking for grants in order to do something that ties into something that we've been connected to, which is asset management and trying to get it right. So thank you, administration, for bringing this forward to us. And if there's no further questions, I will not reread the motion as it's the recommended action. So if there's any issues, please speak now. And seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor? And that was passed unanimously. Council, anything further for this 3rd action item for this evening? And seeing none, thank you, administration. That'll bring us to our 4th action item, procurement policy FN 1300. CEO Olson.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. As well, council received this item at last week's standing committee meeting. During the discussion, council provided direction to add a section 5.2.4 regarding the town's commitment to consider local vendors for procurement. That was achieved and is included in the version that council has in the report for tonight. Overall, the procurement policy reflects the updates required to town's purchasing policy to bring it in line with provincial legislation, relevant trade agreements, and standard municipal practices. Based on the direction provided at the standing committee meeting last week, the recommended action for this item is that council approves procurement policy FN-1300 as presented and rescind purchasing policy 016. I have Mr. Fayez on the Zoom call and Ms. Fox present tonight to assist in answering any questions that council may have on this.
Thank you, CEO Olson. Council, any questions for administration? And if not, I'll entertain a motion. Councillor Waugh.
I put forward that council approves procurement policy FN 1300 as presented and rescind purchasing policy 016. If I could speak to it quickly. Really appreciate the detailed report that was provided last week and the ability to answer the questions that were put forward. Also really appreciate the inclusion of the new clause, and this update has been long overdue, so thanks to administration for all the work.
Thank you, Councillor Waugh. Council, any questions? And I'll speak to it. I'll be in support of this. Thank you, administration, for capturing, the conversation from Standing Committee for Section 5.2. I think it's well articulated, and it really wraps up, a good report, a good policy. And Council, anything further, Councillor Haas?
Yeah, and I just want to also, I agree with, with that good discussion we had during our standing committee and getting in there, but also to thank our intern as well, Fayez, for his input on this one. It was showed a great deal of professionalism putting this together. So thank you, Fayez, for that.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, any further debate? We have a motion on the floor. And seeing none, I'll call to question the council approves procurement policy FN 1300 as presented and rescinds purchasing policy 6016. Council, all those in favor? That is passed unanimously. Council, anything further for the fourth action item this evening? And seeing none, we will move on to our fifth action item, solid waste management program. COs.
Thank you, Your Worship. This item is before Council for decision tonight regarding the modernization of the solid waste management program. As discussed with Council at the July 7th Standing Committee meeting, the key benefits to modernization include addressing some of the health and safety issues that we experience through the automated garbage truck and system we have currently. This is the town's most frequent WCB claim coming from the operators of the automated garbage truck. Changing the program to the modernized collection system would see a reduction in these WCB claims. As well, the cost, we went into detail last week on the new bins and how they are more cost effective, maintaining status quo with our current bin and required to replace all the black and blue bins. So that's really stated in the report, and I won't go into too much detail there, but that is one of the motivating factors in bringing this before Council, that opportunity to look at costs and that reduction, as well to look at the full cost recovery model through the modernization. Further, there's a recommended action for the development of a full cost recovery volume-based fee structure for residential and commercial customers based on service costs. And this isn't something that we spent a lot of time on last week. And at this point, I will ask Mr. Hawk to explain this to provide Council a little bit of an understanding of what's involved in that volume-based fee structure. So with that, I will turn it to Mr. Hawk to kind of take us through that item.
Thank you, Mr. Elson. Yes, I will try to explain the volume-based fee structure. So the volume-based fee structure in the report in attachment number 1 on different options you can see the total cost under different category. So let us, for sake of understanding, let us think that we are talking option number A1A3. So our total in the flowchart number 1, attachment number 2. So here option 1A3, if we look at full cost recovery model, the total yearly cost is $1.588 million. And the residential flat fee is $14 and commercial flat fee is $97.75. So let us think that we will develop a volume-based fee structure for our residential customer. So for the sake of understanding, say let us think out of that $1.588 million, $1 million cost is related to residential service. So out of that $1 million cost, let us think that we are providing, say, 2 different bins for our single family household customer, say for example 96 gallon and another say 64 gallon. But before we go that, say we will identify the cost related to our multifamily, and that multifamily, say out of $1 million, say $400,000 cost is related to multifamily. So remaining 600,000, now we have to split on based on volume. So let us think two scenario. One, we are providing 96 gallon, and let us think for the sake of simplicity that 50% of our single family household residential customer will be using a 96 gallon, and say 50% of single family household will be using a say 64 gallon. In that case, say out of that $14, around $15.40 will be charged to a 96 gallon user, and $12.60 will be charged to a 64 gallon bin user. So basically we can add further smaller bin, like city of St. Albert. Right now they have 3 different bin size. Some other municipalities we found in our research that they have up to 4 different size. And actually cities of St. Albert went further, that on top of that they issue additional tag. For example, I'm having a special party at my home, and I know that I will be creating lots of garbage on a particular day. So I can upfront purchase some of those prepaid tags from the town, and once I have all those additional garbage that is not fitting in my 96 or 64 gallon bin, I can put them in a bag and tag the prepaid tag, and on a collection day, they will put that beside their bin, and because of it's already paid, the town will pick them. So this is further advance, but we can. So the bottom line is, we already know that in any of those options, what is our total cost? We know the total cost, first of all, has to be splitted if council choose to continue to provide service to our commercial customer. That means out of 100% cost, around 42% cost will be allocated to commercial customer, and the remaining 58% cost will be allocated to residential customer. And first of all, from the residential, we have to split multifamily and single family, and then from single family we have to further split based on bin size. I hope it's lots of information, lots of numbers together. I hope it makes sense. If not, I can answer to any question.
Thank you, Mr. Hawk. I'm just looking through this again. What are the costs for the tags? You had mentioned the tags for the extra.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, we didn't develop. These are all just for decision-making purpose, but the actual fee structure, along with if you want to implement the tag, it will come as part of the bylaw amendment. Or actually, if we need to develop a full new bylaw, the fee structure will be part of that bylaw. So at this time, we didn't put any calculation or anything, because at this time, we have to estimate, say, out of 3,000 single family household, say we will be estimating that 40% may choose to go with a smaller bin, and maybe 60% of household will choose to go with a 96 gallon bin. So based on this assumption, we have to develop the fee structure. And the bottom line is we have to recoup the 100% cost, because if council choose to adopt the full cost recovery, that is our plan, that at the end of the day, whatever our yearly estimated cost, we have to collect them through this fee structure. So, and again, from the very first year, maybe we'll put some number as a price for those additional tag, but as we go, as we know that how much actually it is contributing to our cost and how many people are using those tags, then accordingly we will be continue to revise those fee structure, including the tag fee.
Thank you for that, Mr. Hawk. I have a follow-up. So just out of curiosity, because I find that this is actually very important to a final decision. let's say the entire community or 50% of the community got a tag system, and if I understand correctly, this is an extra bag beside your 96 gallon. How is that picked up? And what are the consequences of getting a lot of that? Like, let's say 50% of the town of Hinton chose to get tags. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so any customer who don't have bin, either a 96 gallon bin or a 64 gallon bin, or say we introduced another, say 50 gallon bin. So any of the residents to purchase additional tag must have to have any of those bins. Then on top, as I mentioned, that on a certain time or certain day or certain occasion, they create more garbage than they can fit in any of the bin. So for the additional garbage, they will use this prepaid tag. So I don't expect that 50% of the people will be using those tags on one single pickup day. Maybe 10% or 5% may use those bags. And for collection wise, we have to collect those bags manually.
So may I, how is it put into the truck?
As I mentioned, we have to collect them manually, and
Manually?
yes, if we modernize the system, there will be a Kyoto can in front of the truck.
Okay.
So the operator or any assistant, if we know, say for example, during Christmas time, we know that additional garbage will be created. So we will send additional, say public works laborer or anyone with the truck driver, with the truck operator to pick up those, and they can pick up the bags and put it in those Kyoto can before they finally put back to the main truck.
And my apologies for the follow-ups. Council, any questions? Councillor Stashik.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of in line with the questions about the extra waste and the tagging system. If a citizen creates more waste than they're expecting that it's more than the capacity of their bin, do they have the opportunity, or will they have the opportunity to take the waste themselves to the landfill? And if so, would there be a tipping fee or anything attached with that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Stashik. Yes, anytime like our current system, any residential customer can take their garbage to the landfill free of charge. That volume or the weight will be added to the town's total weightage or total volume. So at the gate of the landfill, no residents will be charged. So still they will have that opportunity to take the additional garbage to the landfill.
Thank you.
This is just another flexibility.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Councillor Haas.
On that note too, because typically, I think the thought is that we can, as a citizen, be cognizant of how much garbage we're using and try to keep it. But on those occasions of Christmases and other things now in the past, when garbage pickup fell on those days, there was times where parts of the community did not receive pickup until the following, which bin was then made accessible, so they wouldn't have to take it out to there. Is that something that we're going to continue to do also with this new system, so that, so if there is a higher volume, for example, during those times, that will be also available to our residents as well?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through to Council. Our current practice for any festive time, like Christmas time, we put larger bin in different strategic locations throughout the town. We will continue to practice that.
Right.
So if any residential customer or resident can or create additional garbage, they will have that flexibility to put them on those additional bins that we will put during that time.
So if I may, so even if we were to, potentially have the tagging system, we would still have that potentially available that you wouldn't have to utilize, say, during those higher garbage times, that tagging system, there would be that available. This tagging system, I would see, is outside of those particular, times a year. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, to the council. Yes, this is all about creating more flexibility.
Mhm.
So the additional prepaid tag may be utilized throughout the year. But those additional bin that we are practicing currently, we are putting in strategic locations, will continue to provide those bins during those festive seasons.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I had a question regarding the routes. During the last week, a lot of people reached out and talked about people who have to switch from the blue bins in the alleys would have a new black bin, and it would be put in front of their house. It would be curbside. It would be on a lot of people, well, not a lot, 15 people about, reached out to me and said, can we have the black bins picked up through the back alley access? They used to be, Emerson was one example that apparently they used to go in the back alley and pick up via that way. My understanding is now they would switch from the blue bin to a black bin and picked up in front of the house. What do we say to those people? Is that negotiable, or what is the approach of administration on picking the routes if people were to complain about that or wanted to be picked up in the alley?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Picking up from back alley there are some challenges. So our first operational priority will be to promote the idea of bringing the bins to the front curbside. If operationally in certain area or in certain street it's challenging, then we'll work on in a particular case by case to arrange any back alley pickup or something like that. But as I mentioned, that operationally our first priority will be to bring it to the front.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Ellis.
And just to clarify, the reasoning for the front versus the back, can you explain what would be the reason for that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through Council, one of the reason is back alley pickup is already challenging because of overhead utility. There are some other issues as well, like the driving condition and all of those. So that's why I mentioned that operationally our priority number one to have them in the front. And again, as we go, it will be a continuous education process. In last standing committee meeting, there was some discussion with regards to whether we can or residents can put the bin in only one side of the street. Those are certain things that it's kind of a ongoing improvement. If we can educate our residents 100%, and that will actually help us reducing the pickup time and overall cost for sure. So it will not be achieved overnight, but we will continue to work for further improvement in those areas.
So for me, so the question that I had to, and I guess it's a reasonable question, but I mean, there isn't a new power lines in the back, right? These power lines have always been in back alleys. Is there a reason why all of a sudden now there's a concern with some of that, or, I guess is the question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through the council. No, we know that there is no new power line, but to empty the blue bins, we are continuously having those challenges.
Okay.
So the operator has to take extra precaution, to when they are driving through the back alley and emptying those blue bins. So, and in any new area, if some residents request that they want to, put the bins in the back alley, we don't know, because maybe in those certain streets, we never emptied the bins using the back alley. So if any new request come for any new back alley, then again we have to evaluate the site safety condition and all of those.
As well, I would add that the blue bins are typically located in areas where that's not an issue. To have more frequent pickup spots through the back alley, that's where it can become an issue as well.
Okay. Thank you.
So on that note, because that's sort of my rationale, where the blue bins are, big trucks are still able to go there. So why would we want to change the pickup area? I'm just trying to think of different areas in town. I'm actually one on risk where there's tons of room because the truck goes there all the time to pick up a much bigger bin. So unless I missed something in the conversation, like to me, I just don't see the logic yet.
So, Mr. Chair, say for example, in a back alley pickup, we have say 30 home, and for 30 home, we put 3 bins. So in the past, our supervisors, our people, they picked the best suitable location for emptying or putting those 3 bins, 3 blue bin. So when you remove 3 larger bin and replace them with 30 bin, of course, the 30 homeowner will be bringing their bins and putting in front of their backside or whatever in their back alley. Not they will put in those 3 spots. So those 3 spots may be all safe or were safe, but all these 30 locations may not be safe. That is my point that I'm trying to.
Perfect. Councillor Estashi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, sorry to follow up, and I hate to just keep pounding on that, but I was under the impression that the proposed truck is it's not a side loading truck, that it's a front loading truck, that the small bins dump into a front bin and then the front bin dumps into the truck, similar to how your typical front loading garbage bin dumps. So is it not possible to still maintain those 3 safe locations where they can pick up the small bins and then maintain the 3 safe locations to do the overhead dump?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through to Council.
So if I may, sorry, it might help. Being a long-term resident and knowing a lot of people that live in those places where they have back alley access, logistically, they're set up for rear garbage. They've always had their garbage picked up behind. So lots of them, they have fences, sidewalks that do full circumference of the house. It's quite a bit more challenging for them to get their waste from where they typically store it, which is normally in the back because it's close to the current alley pickup, all the way around to the front to the street. So I'm just, like Mayor Michaels, I'm hearing a lot of concern from people who now have alley pickup that they're going to have to start carting their garbage all the way around the house out to this front street.
Again, thank you, Mr. Chair, through the Council. Actually, in our pilot area, we had one particular street, one particular location where in the beginning of launching the pilot, we put lots of thought and we thought that it will create lots of challenge for us. But we are fortunate that actually that particular area, we never had any issue that the residents supposed to bring their garbage to the back in those blue versus now they are taking, to the road, in the car. We never had any problem. However, that doesn't mean that any area will not, have that problem. So it will be like a continuous learning process for sure for some of the residents. The only challenge, as I mentioned, that to avoid those operational challenge and create more efficiency, and if we have the bins to the front, it will help us. And even in the pilot area, we were feeling very nervous that it might create challenge when there are parked vehicle. But residents, they are very, very cooperative. When they see there are parked vehicle, actually they are taking the garbage bin and they are not putting in the curb. Rather, they are taking it all the way up to parallel to the parked vehicle. And it's easier for our operator to empty them. So my point that for any new area, when we will launch the new program, if council approve and once approved, operationally we will try to implement the best efficient way. But if for any particular location or if in particular street operationally challenges, then for sure we will look into the best alternative possible way to put the and empty the bins.
Thank you. Councillor Waugh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If we pass these motions tonight, if this moves forward, I guess what will it look like? What sort of timeline are we looking at for implementation and things of that nature?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So once I'm hoping we are getting the approval tonight. So we'll start the process from tomorrow. So we have to order a new garbage truck, and we have to order all the residential bins. And some of the existing blue bins and some commercial bins, we will continue to use for a certain time. So if we look at implementation, so we are hoping to complete the residential implementation before end of the year. And as you know, we have approved budget to proceed with purchasing the truck and the additional bin that we need to purchase.
Thank you.
So I believe we're in a good situation. We have an opportunity to iron out some of these things. My concern is if we're going to do a big shift, change is always difficult, and I know it's going to be a challenge for us to make everyone happy, and we just simply won't at the end of the day. And I want this to succeed, but hearing the conversation, I want to see what the roots are. Why not deliver and approve this, showing the community which alley accesses work, which don't work, and say, this is our plan. We're going to have to do that anyways. The moment we approve this, you're going to have to look at the areas and say which ones can work and cannot work. And I don't want to do this on a learning process. Like I don't want to just go into it and start fixing the mistakes 2 months from now, 8 months from now. Why not see the root, see the ones that we can tell on street A, B, C, you cannot have rear access because of this and this. Then we can sell it. We can have that information to the public showing these are the routes. The people who have a major change, which is blue bins to black, know exactly what they're getting. And right now we don't. So to me, that's one major reason why I don't want to support doing this right now. And we should get that information is what I believe. And the other one, we haven't talked about it because we stayed on routes for quite a while, is I want to see different options for bins. I really believe that the bins in East Hardisty pilot project weren't the best bins. 54% complained about them blowing when empty, 10% when full, lids opening. So I think council should see at better options. I don't mind paying more for a better product. At the end of the day, if we're going to pay $80 for a totter, what does a $200 totter look like? Maybe it's a better lid that closes better, one that's heavier, because I hear you can put weights into it. And we haven't had that discussion. In order for this to be a success with major change in our community, I think we have to address these things before we approve it, instead of piecemealing it later and say, okay, we're going to get this right and that right. Otherwise, the voices of the community aren't being heard. And those were the two major issues for me: is blowing around and access to the blue bins and changing that routine. Other than that, though, I can support this program in principle with major changes. But those are my thoughts. I think and I'll listen to the rest of the council, but I'm prepared to make a direction later to see options on different bins, on what they look like, what costs are, and getting the routes shown to us. And then we can sell it to the community and show them, okay, your rear access, you will get pickup this way. And these are the list of people who don't. So those are the areas I'm still struggling in order to support this. And I'll leave it at that. Councillor Stashin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I share some of those concerns, and then hearing the timeline in response to Councillor Waugh's question raised some concern in my mind too. It was only a week ago that we directed administration to engage in public engagement session, including some online reporting and in-person discussion. So if we're talking about ordering trucks and bins and everything, where does that public engagement part fit into that process and timeline?
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. From my recollection, the public engagement was related to the recycling options and to be completed by the end of Q1. There was public education to go along with the change management piece of moving to a modernized system, but no public engagement on the system itself was approved by council last week.
Councillor Waugh.
Further to Mayor Michael's comment, I guess further to some of the some things you brought up, Mr. Hawk, what flexibility is there for bin sizes and styles, I guess?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the council, for bins size, we can bring 3 different sizes: 96 gallon, 64 gallon, and the other, I think, 48 gallon or something. For bin design, that is the only total bin that is in the standard nowadays, and most of the municipalities using this type of engineered design bins. So bin size wise, yes, we have flexibility up to 3-4 size, and again, depending on the need and the desire, we can implement different fee structure for different size of bins.
Follow. Just to refresh everyone's memory, what size bins were used in the pilot project?
96 gallon.
Okay, so that was the largest size already.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wall. A follow-up on that, is 96 the biggest? That's what I see online. Is there a 110 gallon, or what's the standard, or what is available commercially that's not prohibitive to extremely custom made?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For total bin design, 96 gallon, so far in our research, we found the largest. Just one little correction during the implementation, we made the error. Initially, we told that our existing black bins are 140 gallon, and later on we corrected that to 120 gallon. Actually, the capacity of our existing black bins are exactly 110 gallon. So switching from a 110 to 96, we are losing 14 gallon, not 24 gallon. So my apologies that we presented the misleading information in the past. So the exact volume for our existing black bins is 110 gallon. And for commercial bin, we have different sizes, starting largest at 6 cubic yard, then 4 cubic yard, 3 cubic yard. So those will be utilized for multifamily residential, if approved, and for commercial. And with the new truck, the advantage will be that, for example, one particular commercial customer is using a 3 gallon bin currently. And because of their demand, say we are emptying the bins twice a week. So as our new truck will have added capacity, we can replace the 3 cubic yard bin with a 6 cubic yard bin. So we will be emptying once, not twice a week. So in that scenario, those business might have or can see some cost savings.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. 15% smaller might make a major difference, because a lot of people are complaining that it was closer to 30%, which is problematic for people with large families, or people who just are in the habit of having a lot of volume in waste. So thank you for that. And Councillor Haas.
Yeah, and I think the size wise, I took it upon myself, because I knew we were having a discussion, and took a drive out to East Hardisty while it was garbage pickup, and realistically, I didn't see any that were overfilled. I think that adjustments can be made, and I think, quite frankly, myself included, is it was way easier sometimes to toss it in the garbage instead of take the time to recycle it. So I think the adjustment is well. I still have a little bit of concern about the stability of them. I was glad to see that the facts of the matter, that there was no more over on their side than what we currently have right now. So that was at least good to see. I still have some reservations about it, but overall, I think, and doing my own research, trying to find out 96 gallons is it, and it doesn't seem like there's any other, that I could find any designs other than these more narrow top ones. So I think the only thing that I think is fair to say that, looking at where possibly some back alley pickups would be feasible for some of our communities. I do see some advantages with this bin as well. I think, to take a look at, one side of the streets in some places where we then aren't doubling back and picking up on the other side. I think plus these look a lot easier to move that way than say the other ones as well, especially in the wintertime and stuff like that. So, I am comfortable personally moving forward with this as long as I think, as we're purchasing them, we are looking at where there can be some adjustments made, and some may need to have them in the front, but others might be able to stay in the backyard or in back alleys. So that's just my thoughts on that. Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Chair. Our observation with similar windy condition, the older bin is more prone to tipping when full, but the new design bin are more stable than the old bin. At least our observation, we documented that way. And there is some support from the survey as well. So yes, we know that when the bins are empty, it's more prone to tip during windy condition. But when it is full, these are stabler than the older bin. That is our observation.
So I do have a question on, I think it's important to obviously flesh out all these alternatives. And you brought up the tag system for, days that are, whether it's the holiday season, Christmas, whatever. Going to a tag system creates potentially a new problem, an old problem. And I'm trying to think of alternatives for those times of year. And one of the problems will be bags getting ripped in, broken by animals, birds, things of that nature. That, essentially the concept why we moved away from, a bag system, or municipalities moved away. What are your thoughts on having a tag system that could create a lot of rippage and garbage throughout someone's street?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know that we love to feel that Hinton, we are different than any parts of the country, but very respectfully, there are still some municipality who even don't use bin. They're using blue bags for picking up garbage. Even City of Edmonton, they have blue bag garbage pickup manually. And yes, if the residents put those bags in there for pickup overnight, then there is a chance of animal, getting involved. But if the residents bring those bags and put in the morning, then that chance, the duration is limited. But we cannot guarantee that, the animal abuses of those bags will 100% be eliminated. No, it's happening, all over, or whichever municipality is using the bag still, they are having the same problem. So until now, I don't see a huge solution for that particular problem.
So for clarification, there's no alternative really. We have to use a bag system. And secondly, has there been any conversation on what type of bag, meaning to the extent of are there better bags in order to protect from that? And I'm saying that in the sense of just to see what we could tell the community, say, hey, if you're going to have one of these bags, there are bags that are 3 times stronger than the old traditional bags. And these are the things we need to know to obviously go to the community and say, rest assured though, this will be much stronger, and please try to bring them out in the morning. So any comment on the types of bags?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, up to this point, we didn't do lots of research on the type of bag. First of all, we need, council's approval to proceed with the volume based. And then after that, if we want to introduce, and again, it will come to council for approval on the bylaw. So the types of bags, we didn't do lots of research up to this point. But there are ways like we can buy those bags in a bulk volume, and like the tag, we can sell them to the potential buyer of those bags. And the other idea that residents can buy, and my experience in Port Macquarie, when municipality had certain bags, say for example, during the summer months for picking up grass, cutting and all of those, they prescribe the type of bag, and you must purchase those type of bag and put the garbage in those bags for pickup. So, we can, when we'll develop the bylaw, we can look into all the details of those.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Haas?
I guess just one other question about the existing bins. If we're looking at a switchover so what, the question that I've had is what is going to happen to those black bins that, exist in our community right now? Is this something, what's the plan for those?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Some of the bins are scrap.
Yeah.
We have to send them to a scrap facility, and I already have discussion with Edson District Recycling Society whether they can handle all of those scrap or not. Some of the bin, some residents want to keep them.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, we should bring them and look for salvaging them or for selling them. But the challenge is that in Alberta, there are only 2 other municipalities that may be interested of buying them. And out of those 2, one is already in the process of switching from this type of bin to the modern bin. So basically, and we have another municipality in British Columbia that they can be prospective buyer of some of the older bin. So if anyone want to keep them, depending on if we are moving forward with the modernization, then ideally we should not have any problem, because to handle them we have to spend more money. So if any resident want to keep them, I think we can let them keep them.
I'm just thinking, if I may, Mr. Mayor, if we got all these bins, maybe looking at what alternatives, whether it is to recoup some costs and sell them for other, there's lots of things out there for repurposing things all over the place that people have ideas about with these bins. And I agree, there's probably obviously some that need to be scrapped, but there may be others that, maybe there is a market of some sort out there for something. So I don't know, but I don't want to see them all tossed away, if there's some way of recycling them in some way. So, I guess if people want them, I guess that's fine too, but yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council? I'm willing to give a direction, so I'll ask Deputy Mayor Haas to take over. I'd like to direct administration to bring a report on, okay, on Totter options to a future standing committee. I'll speak to it. And if we need more specifics, I can add it, but I think we need to see options. We need to know the cost, if we're going to do full cost recovery, and we want a Totter that's twice as much. Is it Totter or Toter? I always forget. Toter? Toter. If we bring a Toter, or we purchase them for the entire community, we should know what they look like. And I'm not comfortable with the ones we have. And I'm willing to pay more than $80. And a lot of residents have told me they're willing to pay more. You get what you pay for. And I know $80 is much cheaper than almost $600 for the old ones, but there is something in the middle. We can add weights, we can add things to it. And at the end of the day, I believe we should purchase capital that represents the need and the want from our community. And again, I want this to succeed. If we're going to do a major shift in waste, I think we have to check out all of the issues that we're hearing and that we suspect that we have, and not do that after the fact. Because again, we've went down that road, in the past, and it's not always worked out well. So to me, that's one of the 2 directions I'll make. I'll make another one after to get information on the routes for people who are affected by blue bins. And I think once we have that information, we can compile it and make a decision that supports moving forward with a major shift. But before that, without those two motions, I know I cannot support moving forward with this with all the concerns that I've heard from the community. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. Thank you for the direction. Council, any questions for this direction? Well, okay. That's our first direction. Councilor Stashik?
Thank you, Mr. Interim Chair. No questions or anything, just a comment that I'm in support of this motion. And I apologize for my mistake earlier in the public consultation process that wasn't approved last week. In lieu of that, though, I think this is a good step in being able to get some information provided to council that we can share with the citizens to collect some input on and their feelings and opinions on some options that may be out there. And I'm looking forward to another direction request from Mayor Michaels if he chooses to make that one as well. Thank you.
All right, Councilor Stashik. Councilor Watt?
Yeah, I guess I just want to clarify with Mr. Hawk. I thought I heard you say earlier that there really are very few options with regards to the toter design.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through the council. Yes, the total design itself a brand or a design. So design itself, we have no other alternatives, but material wise and size wise, there are options. And last week in the standing committee, I mentioned that these total bin, the 96 gallon may cost up to $400. There are some material, there are some heavier stuff, those may cost up to $400 per bin.
But there are some, speaking of the intent of Mayor Michael's motion, there are some variables that we could look at.
Yes, bin material wise, the overall weight wise of the bin, there are some flexibility or different options.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Watt. I guess I have two questions, two questions now, if I may. So one, it sounds like you've already done some of this background information, so bringing a report back, shouldn't be too timely in order to, but I think hearing that, Mr. Hawk, I think being able to show our communities, we've looked at the research in there, and I mean, if there are some heavier, now that heavier though, does it change the gallon amount? Like if it's heavier product, for example, does it change then the capacity?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, to the council. Up to this point, our research shows the design and the capacity is kind of fixed. For example, a 96 gallon, you can get under different material or different quality. Say you have the next size is 64 gallon, but you can have in different material, heavier, lighter, costly, less costly or whatever. So up to now we have that information, but for heavier material, whether we have any in-between size, we didn't find until now.
Thank you.
And the other thing, Mr. Chair, yes, we did some research, but summer months, staff members taking holidays and all of those, the turnaround time with all this information, with another report, I think we cannot make it very quick to say in a month or so because of all the scheduled vacation and everything.
Thank you, Mr. Hawk. Council, is there any other questions? Sorry, yeah.
My other one, I know I didn't put it in the motion. I left it at the discretion of administration of what kind of options, but I do want to speak and thank you for the clarity that we're talking 96 gallons, so it stays the same volume. The material could be bigger, heavier, and I'm also looking at potential somewhat of a small shift in shape because I've seen different shapes of it, very similar, but albeit it's physics. At the end of the day, if we have a wider base, even if 5% wider, it can make a difference in communities that are windy. And not see that at all, that's my concern, is if that doesn't exist, fine. But I want to see all the elements that pertain to our community that is very windy, which is the physical shape of it and options regarding that, weight and quality of the material, which pertains to the lid also. And once we have that, I sincerely believe we can present this to the community and show that we are doing our due diligence on bringing the best product with multiple options that were brought to us. So I just don't, I wanted to add that I don't want this to be only on the material type, but shape is also important if it's out there. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Councilor Wong?
I'll
go. I do have a question though in regards to that, and Mr. Hawk, and you may or may not know this answer yet, but currently, like if we were to, for example, say go with a heavier product or different design, shape, do the truck requirements, would that then also be able to manage those bins potentially? Like I know that it comes up with a grabber, right? But if we were to go with a different basis, what Mayor Michaels was saying, would that change then that design that's needed?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, to Council. No, actually, the front load truck will have the ability of emptying the heavier bins as well. So from the unloading or emptying point of view, there will be no challenge.
Yeah. I guess a question to administration. If we forego moving forward right now and go along with Mayor Michaels and seek some additional information to kind of help better educate ourselves and the public before full implementation, what would be the, what would be the impacts operationally if we held off for a while?
So thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a very quick one, just for your information before I answer to your question, Councillor, that for 3,000 bin, approximately we need 3,000 residential bin. And our estimated cost for 3,000 bin is $255,000. Now, if we want to move forward with the heaviest available bin, our cost, say, will be $400 per bin. So instead of $255,000, the cost it will be $1.2 million. So that you know, I developed the costing program just like a program. So if I can change any of the variables, I can show you the entire calculation will be changed. So this is showing me that the upfront capital cost for bins will change from $255,000 to $1.2 million for 3,000 bins, so that you know. Sorry, Councillor, I think you had another question. I didn't.
If there is support for Mayor Michaels' direction to get more information before we go for full approval and implementation, I guess what would be the operational impacts or the risks associated with that for all?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, since last January, we are operating the system in a very risky situation. First of all, before we implement the pilot, we had no additional black bins. So the pilot actually helped us implementing or using these new bins and bring those black bins and using some other part of the town. However, track-wise, we are running on a risky situation. Just a few weeks ago, one of my supervisor was reporting to me that next week I'll have no truck to empty the garbage bins. So we worked, very hard to make sure that the truck, whatever the fixing needs to be done. We did that, and we were fortunate that the fixing worked, and we didn't have that situation of not having truck. But yes, we can make some arrangement that in case of our in-house trucks failure, we can make some options for contracting out and have the contractor stand by, say within 4 to 5 hours notice, they can help us emptying the bins. But the challenge is that contractor, they cannot empty our old bins. That's the information that we had. We were trying to make arrangement with the contractor standby that, okay, in case our trucks, break down, or if we need urgent help, they said, okay, if you implement the new bins, yes, we'll have that ability. But if I can recall correctly, they will not have the ability of emptying the older bins.
Sasha?
One of the other components of the conversation about around the bins is it's not just the construction materials that are used in them, but you mentioned sizes, that there's variability in sizes. So and that's something that I've actually heard from a number of residents. I've heard concerns about sizes being too small, too big, the whole thing. But one of the ones that I would like to maybe have the opportunity to talk about a little bit more is some concerns that some of the older senior citizens have with the 96-gallon bins, that they're just too big for them, and that they would prefer a smaller option, that they live alone, they don't generate a whole bunch of waste. So if there's a smaller bin that's easier for them to handle, they would like to have that option. So if that conversation doesn't happen through Mayor Michael's motion, when does that conversation happen? And how would that decision be made about different bin sizes?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I already introduced that volume-based. So different, say, I generate very less garbage. So I may pick that 48 gallon with less monthly fee, or maybe a 64 gallon instead of 96 gallon. And just for your information, in some other municipality, actually, the 96 gallon bin is not an option. For example, RMWB, they have 3 bin system, and all 3 bins are 64 gallon. So the household garbage pickup is weekly, and the other 2 recyclable. One is plastic, one is paper. Those are bi-weekly pickup. So some of the community, actually, they don't use 96 gallon bin, they use 64 gallon bin. So with that, actually, that's why I'm proposing a volume-based fee structure. I generate less, so I should pay less. I'm a senior citizen, I don't need a big bin, so give me a smaller bin. And just for your information, City of St. Albert, for the senior citizen, they have very smaller bin with a monthly fee of $1 some cent, $1.50 or something like that, monthly. And a very, very small bin for them.
Can I follow up, Mr.
Yeah,
Chair?
please.
So then I guess what I need then is a little bit clarification on what the mechanism is for finding out who wants what bins, and so that you order an appropriate number. Does that happen right away, and then the orders go in with delivery at a predetermined date? How does that work?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. It's an interesting question, very important question. Of course, if approved, we can just go through some questionnaire and collect all those information from our residents who would like to have what type of, So we'll create a form, very small, very simple form, and maybe some telephone, and then we can collect those information, and accordingly, we can determine out of 3,000 how many residents wants, say, 96 gallon bin, and how many want 64 gallon, and how many. This is one of the way, or the best way. Other very quicker way, we can, as I mentioned earlier, that we can estimate based on some research from other community. That because, for example, City of St. Albert, they have 3 different bin, and we can very quickly get that information that, okay, what is the percent of 96 gallon bin out of all of your residents? How many percentage of your residents is using 96 gallon bin, and how many percentage of your residents is using 64 gallon bin, and so on. And we can collect those information from other communities as well who are using different size of bin. But the best way, and it is little time consuming to collect the exact information from our 3,000 residents. Thank you.
So if I may, I have a quick question, and this is on the fly question, and it's doing a little just looking at the internet here. The lid part of it, is there a mechanism, because I'm looking at this and it says a lock, but is there a mechanism that when the lid comes down, it resists somewhat the windage that might open it up, and then that when you go to empty it, and I remember watching the video, there's a bit of a jerk to get it, that it would be able to then open on that potentially to try and solve the issue, one, of the lid opening up, two, that if they were to blow over, I think the other concern is they blow over, the lid opens up and everything's out, the crows are all out, and then that is there for an added extra cost, obviously, but some sort of mechanism that would prevent that from happening. Like I said, I'm looking at it, but I don't know how it works. They call it a lock, but we don't want a lot. But
Mr. Chair, third Councillor Harsh. In our research for the single bins, like these smaller bins, we didn't encounter with that option. But for the larger bin, like 6 yard, 5 yard, 3 yard, those bins will have the ability to lock them. For example, once the commercial user will use them or will replace them with the new bins, they will have ability to lock them for avoiding any illegal dumping.
yeah,
But for the smaller bin, in my knowledge, I didn't see that can be done or not.
so what I'm looking at is on the smaller bin. It's on the one we have, so the 96 one. So it looks like it's like a little roller on it that rolls over top, and then it's got a bit of a latch on it. Bottom. So I'm just wondering if that's a possible option that we could look at as an addition, an accessory to a garbage thing. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there to try, because I'm hearing what you're saying is that if our truck is dying and we don't have a contractor to pick these ones up, there is that issue. And I mean, I'd like to see more options, but I also didn't like the fact that 255 went to $1.some million. So that's a bit concerning for me as well. So I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it up to anybody else that has any comments. Yeah, Councilor.
Just a question, because I am, I understand the concern of admin and the need to get this truck replaced. It's old, and this has been a conversation that's gone on for a lot of years. So, is there an option of somehow getting the truck approved and holding off on some of the operational changes? I just want to put that out there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Without knowing in which direction we are going with the bin, yes, I know that at least it will take minimum 3 months to get the truck. So, but if we at least know that yes, we are moving forward with total bin, then and only then we can order the truck or start processing the tendering or whatever needs to be done for the truck. But without knowing which way we are moving forward, it will be, I think, premature to order the truck.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Just to follow up. So when you say without knowing which way we're going to move forward, which is to say whether we approve going towards the modernized system. So what if there's a general consensus to move forward with the modernized system, but still have some sort of information or public getting more information about the variations on that modernized system? Maybe there's it sounds like there's some appetite to explore some different style of toter, but regardless of the style of toter, it would still be compatible with the truck, would it not?
Yes, thank you. Yes, Mr. Chair. If we move forward with the toter, then yes, the front load truck will be able to empty them. But if is there any, appetite that no, we want to maintain the status quo of the old bin, then it will be challenging to move forward with ordering the new truck.
CEO Olson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just to clarify that the new truck that's purchased is not capable of emptying our current bin, so it would be for a new bin. And Mr. Hawk, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the timeframe on ordering the bins, should a decision be made, is roughly 6 weeks. Is that correct?
Thank you. Last time, yes, for 624 bin, it took us like less than 6 weeks, but for more than 2000 bin, it might take a little more. But again, we can spread out because the implementation we have to go through engaging, our each and every residents, having chat and change over the bins and whatever, so those changeover cannot be happening in overnight. So we can just spread that supply.
Of it then, but what I would like to suggest is that Mayor Michael's motion be tabled until later in the meeting, until a decision's made on moving towards the new waste collection modernized waste collection system, and then it's lifted from the table for decision. That makes sense to everyone? Unless there's any opposition, I would like to actually make that motion, if that's okay.
We have a motion to then table this direction until later in this meeting.
That's correct. That's fine. So if I could speak to it, in addressing the concerns brought up by administration, that they need to know what direction council wants to move in before they can have discussions about, different options for toters, because if the option isn't even there to use the toters, that's a moot point. So I think we have to make sure that we're not putting the cart before the horse. So that's my reasoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Reyes? You're on mute. There you go.
Yeah, thank you, sir, very much. So right now we do have, I don't know, maybe 300 of the new bins. If the waste management, the modernization did not go through, what would we do with these bins?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I already explained that in the standing committee meeting, that if council chose not to or to maintain the status quo, we have to find ways of utilizing the bins, that 624 bins that we purchased as part of the pilot, or it may end up being throwaway cost.
I'm sorry, what was the last part?
It may end up being throwaway cost.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate what Councillor Stashik's doing, and it's kind of the direction I was going to be going in with the questions I kept putting towards administration. I want to make sure that we do move forward with modernization. I think it's overdue, and I think we need to give that clear direction. But I do understand some of the concerns that Mayor Michael's brought forward with the implementation of it and the public advocacy and communication component. So I'm going to be in support of kind of tabling the one and putting first things first and getting approval for the modernizations. So absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wong. Any other councillor? Okay, so we're gonna call this one the question and that the above motion be tabled until later in the meeting. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hawes.
I'll hand it back to you.
Councillor Wall.
I've moved the council approve the modernization of the municipal waste collection system and continue to provide services to both residential and commercial customers as per the full cost recovery model, option 124.
Your turn now.
Okay, yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
you're back.
Councillor Wall, anything further?
No, nothing to add from my previous statement. I just think this is seems to be the first step that administration needs to move forward with this, and it doesn't preclude us from having further discussion about kind of how it's moved forward and how it's communicated and what needs to do from an operational perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wall. I have one question for administration. Currently, we have 3 garbage trucks or waste collection trucks. We're replacing or wanting to replace one, which is the oldest one from 1996, if I'm correct. But we have 3 operational, and we use 2 currently to do our pickup, and we have a backup. Is that correct?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, right now we have 3 garbage truck. Out of the 3, the middle one, which was purchased, I believe, in 2011, is being customized to empty the pilot bins. So basically, we have only 1 truck because the older one is in a very bad condition. The one that we purchased in 2016 is utilized for emptying the other older bins and the commercial bins. So basically, though, yes, we have 3 bins. Out of 3, 1 is very old and very vulnerable, and 1 is already customized to serve just 1 for the pilot area. So basically, we have only 1 truck.
Okay. Even with that being said, the way I look at it, we have 2 functioning trucks. One is 2016, the other one is 2007, if my memory serves me correctly, which has been modernized. And we have a 1996 as a backup, not in great condition, but still working condition. And we only use 2. I don't see the rush to make these decisions. And for me, the biggest one would be, I want to get input on the routes. And if we modernize, if we go ahead with the capital purchase of this truck, we are then saying we are going away from the blue bins before getting info on the routes that will affect the blue bins. And I don't see the urgency. We have 3 and we only use 2. And worst case scenario, so that means if one were to break, the 2007 or the 2016, which I assume 2016 is in very good shape, unless we purchased one that's not very good, we have the backup. And if worst case scenario, we can always lease one if 2 of the 3 trucks broke. I just don't see the sense of urgency of committing to something without getting the information on the routes that will get rid of it. So we're essentially saying we're moving away from the blue bins 100%. But then, if only if there's support from council, ask for what those routes will look like, and then make a decision whether we want to get rid of them. So to me, I just don't see the sense of urgency. We can make this decision in 6 weeks. To me, you know, at a very, very small risk that 2 of our 3 trucks break down. Thanks, Councillor Hawes.
Yeah, I guess in my mind, if we're going for the modernization, I mean, I see the blue bins as no longer an option to me in the future. I think modernization, I mean, due to the fact, a number of things. One, just the waste alone that people, you give a large bin, things are being put in there that could potentially be recycled. They could potentially, you know, I've lived in an area where they have an amount of cardboard that was put in there and other things that, you know, plus also things that should have been taken themselves, for example, lawnmowers being thrown into the bins and things like that, along with the fact that we do have the illegal dumping. I think just realistically, I think the blue bins are not the way to go anymore. I mean, I'm of the mind, I mean, having the the conversation that whether or not the bins, how they look, the size, whatever, the truck currently that we would be ordering would still suffice for those things to move things forward, get that, moving ahead. Because personally, I wouldn't be in favor of keeping the blue bins. I think there's other options to us that we could still use smaller bins, potentially use it in the back alley per se in some areas. But I think it's just, and then the other issue is the occupational health and safety component that has been discussed as well in the previous meetings. I think we have to really take that into consideration. So in my mind, the blue bins, personally, I don't think are any feasible to move forward with that, with the modernization of it. So I'm comfortable moving forward with the modernization. It's just how that modernization, potentially what the bins are going to look like, having some a bit of a report back on that before purchasing them. I think Councillor Stashik also had that, where how people are going to know they can get a smaller bin, and I'm of the mind too of having some idea of where those bins might be placed in the future, whether it's back alley or front pickup and stuff. That I think those things can be hashed out in the meantime. So.
Councillor Haas, Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any further debate? And seeing none, I'll call to question that Council approve the modernization of the municipal waste collection system and continue to provide services to both residential and commercial customers as per the full cost recovery model, option 1B-4. Council, all those in favor? Opposed? That was carried 4-1. Council, Councillor Ross.
Yes, I'd like to make the motion that Council direct administration to develop the full cost recovery volume-based fee structure for residential and commercial customers based on service costs. And if I may speak to it, I think it's already been, mentioned already, but there is possibilities for people to have some cost savings in regards to both commercial and residential, as Councillor Stashik mentioned, potentially being able to use a smaller bin, paying less for the volume that you're, whether it's be for seniors or single family or whatever. And then also for the commercial customers, whether it's weekly or bi-weekly. I think you mentioned Mr. Hawk and the cost savings there as well. So I think this is a win-win for everyone. And it also, again, puts the onus on the customer too to be more obvious of the waste that they're producing and things in there, both residential and commercial. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, you have a motion on the floor. Any debate or questions? And seeing none, I'll call to question that Council direct administration to develop the full cost recovery volume-based fee structure for residential and commercial customers based on service costs. Council, all those in favor? That was passed unanimously. Council, Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that Council approve public engagement, including an online session and an in-person session on recycling options before the end of the first quarter 2021.
Real quickly.
I think that the conversation regarding recycling is important. It's also something that I've heard from the community as well, that if we're talking about moving to a new a modernized waste management structure with smaller bins, that they would prefer to have a recycling option to go along with that to help take some of the, the conventional waste out of the waste stream and perhaps utilize some recycling options. So I'm interested in having that discussion and looking forward to seeing some options presented to us and how recycling can be incorporated into our waste management system. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Ms. Anderson, can I ask for the motion to be put on the screen? Administration, I was trying to recall what motion was made at the last meeting regarding recycling and engagement. thought we had something similar to this.
Mm-hmm.
It was the same, and it was passed. I thought, sorry,
The direction was provided at standing committee, but to move it onto the action tracker, we
My apologies.
preferred that it was
Preferred to.
decided. Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification. My apologies. Okay, council, we have a motion on the floor. And any debate? Seeing none, I'll call to question that council approve public engagement, including an online session and in-person session on recycling options before the end of first quarter 2021. Council, all those in favor? Opposed? That was carried 4-1. Council, Councilor Sashi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that the previously tabled motion be raised from the table.
Thank you, Councilor Stashik. Council, any debate? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's passed unanimously, and I'll hand it over to Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just gonna give Wendy a moment, and we'll bring it back up. Thank you, Wendy. So the previous motion that was tabled, now brought back to the table, was the council direct administration to bring a report on toter options to a future standing committee meeting. Council, any further discussion on this direction? Mayor Michaels?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just for clarification on Councilor Hawes's point regarding the lids administration, there'll be some information on the lids in this report.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilor Stashin?
Yeah, I did have a question about timing for it. So we've heard a couple things about timing of ordering bins, ordering the truck, and now that's a decision that's been made that we're moving towards the toter options, at least in some areas of town. When would it be reasonable to be able to see that report without adversely affecting timelines for administration?
Administration.
No, sorry.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. So looking at just the frequency of meetings through July and August, this isn't something that could be turned around for next week's standing committee meeting. So at the earliest, it would be August 25th that we would be able to bring a report back, but I'd need to just confirm based on holidays and things like that, whether, so I suppose earliest August 25th, but at the latest into September.
Can I follow up?
Yes.
Yeah, so if that is the case, that it can come back on August 25th, does that cause any issues for administration regarding truck and bin ordering and timelines to make everything mesh reasonably well?
And I don't believe it will affect. If we were to proceed with ordering the garbage truck, we would still be able to, if approval even at the beginning of September, align somewhat with the ordering of the bins once they're approved.
Thank you.
And if I may, and that, because obviously we go a little potentially longer with the older style bins, we have the truck capacity for the older style bins, correct? Administration?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, as I mentioned, the 2016 truck is able to handle our old bin and the larger bins. And the 2007 truck is kind of standby or help. No?
So if I may, I appreciate the previous tabling this because it changes the conversation, obviously, and I will be speaking in favor of this to get a couple of ideas or more so about what are different options moving forward with the modernization when it comes to the bins and things like that. So I think it's a reasonable, and I appreciate administration, shooting for that April or that August. If we need a little bit later, that's fine. But Steve Olson.
Thank you, Chair. Just to be clear and to address this, Council moved forward with option 1B4. There were financials that were associated with that based on that $85 total bin or $80 total bin. So just to clarify, those numbers, should the bin option change, will need to be updated and brought forward, and as well the impact to the capital budget, and potentially if council directs administration to move forward with a more expensive bin, what's been budgeted through the capital budget would not apply as well. So there would be some additional work to do should that go in that direction. Just wanted to be clear on that.
Councillor Stash, and Councillor Wu.
Just to follow up on that quickly though, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's some options for some savings there too. If we take a look at, I'm assuming the smaller bins cost less than the 96 gallon one. So those numbers were based on a full community-wide rollout of the 96 gallon bin. So if a portion of those are smaller, less cost, there could be an opportunity there for some cost savings as well, is there not?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, there will be some, like 96 gallon may cost up to the heaviest up to $400, but the 64, it will not be substantially less. There will be some cost savings opportunity, but I don't know the exact number, but if I can recall correctly, the difference will not be huge, will not be at hundreds.
Thank you.
Councillor Wu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'd assume that the financial variables would be presented as part of that.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Council. Any other debate? So we're going to call this the question then. The Council direct administration to bring a report on total bin options to a future standing committee meeting. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. And I'm going to give it back to you, or do you have another?
Nope. Yeah.
Okay, I'll keep it.
Council, anything further? If not, I have another direction. I'll hand it over to Deputy Mayor Haas to direct administration to bring a report on the waste collection route options for the recommended modernized system. And if I may speak to it, Mr. Chair. I think especially now that we have a period of time where we can get this information, bring it to the public, get feedback, and understand the impacts of this change, and bring this out to our residents as soon as possible to show if you live in this area or that area that you will get curbside in the front of your house, or it's going to be back alley. If you can't have a back alley, there'll be reasons for it, and then we say, this is how our garbage system pickup route will look with et cetera, and the decisions we've made today, I think is something prudent for us to have, because it will impact, the service delivery and the service that residents feel, and to best succeed in a major change, which we all know change is difficult just in itself. I think we set up ourselves well to hear from our community and to move forward hand in hand with this change. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Reyes.
Thank you, sir. I will definitely support this. I think the more information that our citizens have, the more correct information that they have, I think the transition will be easier for people. So I will support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reyes. Councillor Waugh.
Yeah, and I'll speak in support of this too. I think there are some streets and some neighborhoods that may pose some operational challenges, and I think identifying those before we go to full implementation and having a conversation with those neighborhoods will increase our chances for success. And we're in the business of delivering services, and I think that's probably the better way to approach it than trying to deal with it after the fact. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waugh. And if I may, change, as Mayor Michaels mentioned, it is difficult, but the more information we have, to justify what those changes are, the reasons for them. And, I think the better, and so to have that outlook on things will definitely make that, as Councilor Ray said, but that transition a little bit smoother. We're not going to make everybody happy, but I think it's important that they understand the reasoning for it. So I do will be supporting this as well. Council, any other comments or questions? All right, so we'll call this one to question then. That Council direct administration to bring a report on the waste collection route options for the recommended modernized system.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, before you
Yes.
call the question, if
Yeah.
I may.
Mhm.
Sorry, would there be a timeline that would be attached to this one as well?
Good question.
I'd ask to administration, I guess, to recommend something.
And see also.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We would seek to prepare and present the reports on the modernized waste collection system, the toter bins, and the route at the same time. It's a better holistic conversation. So it would follow, I guess, to answer your question, the same time frame as we discussed for the previous item.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And if I may, just the wording of this encompasses what the need for what the administration needs to go forward with that particular part.
To have detailed consultation with especially all those residents who will be impacted switching over from a blue bin to a modern bin and finalize the route for the entire town. I think it will be challenging to come back with the report with the other report like in August 25th. So this one needs more time because the total bin cost and the options is just we will do research and we can bring and update the report with the cost information and we can bring, so it can be done quickly, but this one, it will take some time.
I suppose to that point, Council, to clarify, is it the expectation that the public engagement would take place prior to the development of the routes and the presentation of that to Council? Or would it be appropriate to develop our first take at that route, bring it to Council for discussion and do any follow-up as needed with the community after that point?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, my intent was not to do the full out finalization. This is about conceptually what alleys or what roads that currently have blue bins can still potentially have access for the black bin pickup in the back. And having that information saying these routes, because I don't know how many there are in town, maybe I don't know, 30, I don't know how many use the blue bins, and eliminating the ones that have issues and say this must be front pickup, this must be back. And then we can, as a council, have a conversation whether we might want to all do front pickup anyway. But knowing, we don't know yet which ones have the hazards and don't have the ability. So I'd like to leave it at that level, have that information, and if we need to do further engagement from the community, we do so, but I wouldn't want to hold this up in its entirety and bring it together. So if there's any engagement that administration wants to do or any input from user groups or residents, I think that's a prerogative also of the administration. But this is not go out and do a huge public engagement in order to finalize the route. So I hope that helps. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Councilor Waugh and then Councilor Stasher.
Yeah, and I concur with Mayor Michaels. That wasn't my intent either. It was the best first crack at it, what the administration's vision is how things would be adapted, and then that can be used as a platform to start some discussions if we need to do that.
Councilor Stasher.
Yeah, and that was my take on it too. Thank you, Mr. Chair. It was, not an in-depth consultation with individual residences. It was more of just an high-level administrative overview on where the logistical challenges are too great to even be able to consider back alley pickup and other places where it may be feasible. So, thank you.
Okay. Jay Olsen. Yeah.
Great, thank you for the clarification.
All right. Okay, so then we'll go back then and call this the question. The council direct administration to bring a report on the waste collection route options for the recommended modernized system. Council, all those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, council, and I'll hand it back to Mayor Michaels.
Thank you, former chair. Councilor Race, did we lose her? She had mentioned that she must leave at 6 o'clock.
She just closed out.
And if so, if Ms. Anderson, if you can make note of that departure, thank you very much. Okay, council, anything further for this item? And if not, thank you, administration, for your patience, Mr. Hawk. I know there's a lot of information in this, but I think we handled it well today. There are a lot of issues that came from our community. We have to speak about these things. We have to flush out, potential issues, even if it's overkill at times. And I think we're in a better place today than we were in the last week. So thank you again, administration and council. And with seeing no one else, we'll move to our 6th action item, January to April 2020 year-to-date financial statements and capital project plan. COs.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. The financial statements for January to April 2020 include information on the town's financial position to the end of April, including the first 6 weeks of COVID adjustments through cost mitigating strategies that were employed by administration to offset additional costs and losses. As well as the actuals from the beginning of the year that haven't been presented to council so far. Administration did bring forward a look at our cost mitigating strategies around COVID in early June, including what was used to protect the town from major budgetary impacts. As well included in this report is an update to the capital project plan through the municipal response to the pandemic. Administration was really paying attention to cash flow considerations that have been at the forefront of cost mitigating strategies that we've undertaken so far. As such, $3 million of capital projects have been placed on hold until fall. So the reasoning for that is to look at what we're collecting by the end of August for our tax question. And then also administration's requesting approval of $1.6 million of projects to be proactively deferred to 2021 due again to that cash flow and as well capacity concerns. The report also provides an update to our status of the community grant program and the money that's available for the grant in 2020. During the budget process, we had a different anticipated amount available for that grant based on our 2019 revenues. However, our actuals, due to an unanticipated amount of write-offs required for unpaid ATE fines, we've had to reduce that amount to $19,000. We've also had to reduce potentially to one intake due to COVID. We were not able to proceed with the timeframes that we typically would in the spring. So we're seeking some direction on that as well. At this point, I turn things over to Ms. Fox to highlight anything additional in the report that she would like to speak to and provide any clarification on anything within that. So go ahead, Ms. Fox.
Thank you, Ms. Olson, and Chair through to Council. There's not much more to add. Ms. Olson did an excellent job of covering the main points that we would talk about tonight. One of the issues I want to highlight, or the things that I'd like to highlight, is that having too many discussions right now around the COVID impacts for me is a little bit premature, just because it is only 6 weeks, gives us a partial picture. So I think the next set of financials will be more telling as to where we sit with the impacts of COVID. I think that all my notes here have been covered. The only other thing I would say is in reference to the capital projects that are deferred on page 148 of the agenda package, it does list out a number of costs. And one of the things I should have done for you is just shown that some of the costs are deferred till later in the year to let you know on the capital plan why some things haven't been undertaken yet. But a majority of those costs, $1.6 million, are the ones that we're asking to defer into future years. And just for a transparent process, I mean, we could have just brought through the capital plan that information in the status update, but this really gives council the opportunity to control that plan there. And the other item there would be that, just to reiterate that through the budgeting process, all capital projects brought forward and presented were discussed in a regular council meeting during budget deliberations, and council had the ability to comment on those capital projects that were brought forward at that time. The only thing that changed between last year to this year in the capital package is the presentation of the financials to ensure the best value for the town. The presentation of the numbers in the financials are summarized into one amount. So that would be the only difference at this point. The numbers that will be actually spent will be disclosed to council. The last item I had, I believe, oh, no, I think I've got it all. So I will leave it at that and open it up for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Fox, Ms. Olson. Council? Councilor Olson.
I just have one question, well, there's a couple, but I mean, obviously, senior leadership team have gone over this and staff and everything and have considered the risks and all of that. The one question though, I guess I have is in regards to Gerard Redmond. I realize that due to COVID and things like that, it's pushed it ahead. And my concern is not to push it forward, or well, it will happen, but is the state of that park, is it, because we've been talking about this for quite some time and everything, where it's unsafe, do we need to look at potentially removing pieces of equipment so it's not used, you know, and things of that nature, you know, because I figured that was part of the upgrading it, but now that that's going to take a little bit longer, is that necessary?
Thank you, Mayor Michaels, through to council. This may be something I'll look to Ms. Howarth to assist on the status of and the considerations of administration for the Gerard Redmond Park. The RFP was being prepared through COVID. There were some difficulties. It's unclear if that's something that will be accomplished in totality this year. But Ms. Howarth, if you have some information to share on that.
I'm sorry, I probably don't have too much more. That's the most recent information I have as well, is that we were working on that press proposal. I know we were challenged with a couple of the items on there, but regarding the safety part of it, we will continue to do our playground safety inspections on it. A large part of the work that was being done was the earthworks and whatnot, that we were getting support through Mr. Hawk's infrastructure area. So we'll move forward with what we can, and if there are areas that need to be shut down for safety, we will absolutely do that and either remove them if we need to or sign them off. But try to keep it limping along and functional as much as we can.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, just my preference, I don't know what the rest of the council, but I just would rather see pieces removed if necessary rather than caution tape or something like that, you know, then that's just my thoughts on it, you know, because I think one looks better than the other for sure. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Olson.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. And just to clarify, this wasn't one of the projects that was included in our deferral list. No. Yeah, so we're, just to clarify for public and for others.
Yes, I appreciate that. No, because like I said, if I may, I mean, the deferral, like I said, I'm assuming that the risk was looked at on all of them and these were the best pick. This was not on the deferral list. I guess I just wanted to help understand why this project isn't moving forward when it says 2020 on here. So, yeah, thank you. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Councilor Olson. So on that note, just for clarity, especially for myself and for anyone who's watching, so where are we with that RFP? So is that happening in 2020 at the Gerard Redmond?
Thank you, and again, I'll look to Ms. Howard, but the notes and the discussion around Gerard Redmond in the capital plan is that the RFP was being prepared and we were going to try and get as far as we could with it, but without knowing whether it could be completed, totally completed in 2020. But we're moving ahead as though that's the intent. and Ms. Howard, if there's any update on where the RFP sits, or if that's
No, I don't. I'm sorry. Unfortunately, Mr. Hawk, I think, has stepped out of the meeting, so he would probably be the other one we were working with. Is he still on? I don't see him on my screen. Oh, he's in the room. Sorry, that's why. Okay. May have a comment. We were working together with that, and may have a comment.
So on that note, I don't know what the will of council is, but I think understanding COVID plays a role, and it's not on the list, which is for me good. But we are the middle of July, so it's when can we get an update on the RFP process? And regardless of where it's at, I have fielded a lot of calls, and not seeing it on here, I was comfortable that something was coming, but now I'm sensing we don't know if it's coming for sure. So how soon could we get an update on where we are with the RFP?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Okay.
Yep.
tomorrow?
I can give you an update on where the RFP is. I can get that tomorrow.
Perfect. Thank
I
you.
won't have an answer for when the playground will get replaced tomorrow, but an update on the status of that, we can get that to you tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you very much. Council, anything further? Councilor Watt.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a motion that council accept the January to April 2020 year-to-date financial statements and capital project plan update as information.
Thank you, Councilor Watt. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any debate? Seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor? Anything further, Council? Councilor Ostache.
I'd like to move that council approve the deferral of the capital projects as presented in the amount of $1,671,000 into future years to assist with cash flow challenges related to COVID-19.
Thank you, Councilor Ostache. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any further debate? Seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor? It's also passed unanimously. Council, appetite for another motion? Councilor Watt.
Yeah, that council approved the community grant program to have one intake in the fall of 2020 with the $19,180 of available funds.
Thank you, Councilor Watt. Council, again, we have a motion on the floor. Any further debate or questions? Councilor Watt.
I guess I appreciate that this was the recommendation of the administration and the fact that they did give us a couple options on what to do with this money. But in my mind, this has always been funds that have been treated separate from our operational funds. So I'd like to keep it within the community grant program as opposed to using it to defer COVID costs. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Watt. Councilor House.
Yeah, and I concur in the fact that it's not as much as we normally have, but I think under the circumstances with COVID and some of the strains that have been put on different organizations, I think this is, still money that could be utilized by the community, maybe used in smaller proportions, but still, the money's there to apply for. So,
Thank you, Councilor House. Councilor Ostache.
Yeah, just a question to administration then, I guess. It's I know it's not ATE reporting time or anything, but I'm just wondering what's behind the significant change in revenue from ATE, which is what funds the community grant program, if there's an answer.
I'll start out and I'll turn it over to Ms. Fox to add anything that I've missed. So a couple of things. Overall, we're seeing less ATE revenue due to a reduction in, positions within the community for the ATE program to operate in, I guess. So there's a few that have been removed that were larger recipients of fine revenue than others. So we've seen that overall. And then as well, we've seen a decrease in the ATE fine revenue due to unpaid fines. So that may be, especially through 2020, something that we see continue. So it's uncollectible and it's written off as bad debt. So though we did receive fine revenue, when we had to write off that amount, it decreased the amount that we were able to use for the community grant program. So it was a different number than council saw through the budgeting process. And it wasn't known until the audited financial statements were completed, exactly what we had to work with. Ms. Fox, if there's anything that you would like to add.
Thank you, Ms. Olson. Yeah, I think with that, knowing the unforeseen circumstances that didn't allow us to do the first intake and doing this, we just wanted to be really transparent about it. Gave us an opportunity to communicate the difference, and Ms. Olson captured exactly what's happening. I would like in the future, as budget deliberations come up, council to consider that bylaw and possibly looking at updating or amending the bylaw with the current situation. As funds become much more limited, the trend has been, we've cut the revenue in half, we've cut it down again, and we're looking at cutting it down again based on the current status unless something changes. Probably a refreshed look at that bylaw to ensure that the appropriate breakdown and percentage is being looked at. One of my concerns is we transfer money to the reserve based on the amount of net revenue that comes in. And now we've transferred money to the reserve and we haven't actually been able to collect that revenue. So we put money into the reserve and we ended up having to take out of current operations for that loss. So we've overinflated our reserve now by that amount. And there's nothing that incorporates the future year's losses due to uncollected debt to adjust that reserve balance. So just like you to take that into consideration for future talks because as you know now the reserve has a total in there that has been contributed, but the loss has had to come out of current operations.
Councillor House.
Just one clarifying question in regards to the areas that you mentioned, Sia Olson. Was that provincial legislation that led to that, or was that municipal changes that we made in any way? Like, cause I realized because there was some provincial, like highways, certain highway areas, but yeah, I guess some clarification.
Thank you, and I may defer to Chief Martins as well to help in answering that question. I believe, and my recollection may be incorrect, but I believe that was a municipal decision. There were a couple of spots along the highway that are no longer used at this point. They are still approved, and if we wish to reintroduce them at any point, we can. It wasn't based on any kind of provincial direction, as far as I know.
Fire Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through to council. So CEO Olson is correct. We also did have some other challenges with legislation with transition zones that the province put forward. So we had to reevaluate some of our current zones, as well as just to go back a little bit, the province is now taking 40% of all provincial tickets, so not ATE. So there was a 14% increase as well. And the zones, not just by a reduction of how the program has come to date, but once school stopped, that kicked out all of our school zones. So there was no revenue coming in from any of our school zones. So they went back to what they normally are through the summer. So it really reduced the number of zones to pretty much our highway corridor and then our 50 kilometer zone. So big challenges there. We also lost one of our positions here. So we only have one person shooting ATE in town currently. So we're right around only 11 zones activated in the community.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, okay.
Thank you, Councillor House. Councillor Waugh.
No, I'm fine. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, council, anything further? And seeing none, I'll call the question that council approve the community grant program to have one intake in the fall of 2020 with the $19,180 of available funds. Council, all those in favor? That's passed unanimously. Council, anything further for this item, Councillor House?
Just one question and this is through to administration, but the bylaw, as you talked about, Ms. Fox, where are we at? I mean, that sounds like a substantial problem bylaw, I guess from the perspective of this particular fund. Where might we be at that might be coming to us to mitigate that?
Thank you, Mayor Michaels, to Council. That isn't something that is slated to come anytime soon. I think we can get through this next intake. We can look at the budget through the budget process, and this is something that can come in early 2021 for Council. We may even want to look at a reduction in the number of intakes per year, depending on how much we have to provide. It's a lot of work for our local organizations to participate in that process. It's rewarding, obviously, and there's a lot of good success there, but to undertake that process twice in 1 year for a limited pocket of funds. We may want to look at that. I think we'll have more information through budget and then into early 2021. Again, any impact won't be known until on that amount of revenue collected until our financial statements are completed for the end of the year. However, we won't be looking likely at the delay that we had this year. So hopefully we'll have that around the same time to make an informed decision on that bylaw.
If I mean, then it's on your radar for sure, and that's great to know. So excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes, Ms. Olson. Council, anything further for this item? Seeing none, thank you, administration. We'll move to our final action item for this evening, Municipal Emergency Management Plan. CEO Olson.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. The Emergency Advisory Committee was struck earlier this year as per the town's approved emergency management bylaw number 1144. Since then, the EAC has met twice over the last couple of months and has reviewed the new emergency management plan. In our last meeting, there was a request that some additional language be included around when the EAC will meet after the Emergency Operations Center is activated, as well as after a state of local emergency is declared. The plan, as explained in the report, is a top to bottom rewritten plan. It is a lot more detailed, provides good direction to administration and to the town as a whole on roles and responsibilities in an emergency and additional information to that. The recommended action tonight on the item is for Council to approve the Municipal Emergency Management Plan as presented. This is, per the bylaw, something that the Emergency Advisory Committee could do. However, it was thought for transparency's sake to bring it to a regular Council meeting and to do this in a public meeting. Fire Chief Martins is present as well to assist in answering any questions the Council might have. And Chief Martins, if there's anything that you would like to add, just as an introduction to this plan for public or Council's sake, I invite you to contribute.
No, I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you, administration. Councillor Hawes.
Yeah, I'd like to move that Council approves the municipal emergency plan, management plan. Sorry, and if I can speak to it. I've said it in our meeting or EAC meeting, but I mean, the amount of detail that was put into this report, I think one of the, a great report that's come back to Council. It's very detailed. It's very well put together. We've had good discussion on, just when it's enacted and things of that nature. But compared to our previous management plan, it's just leaps and bounds. I headed that one in so many different ways. So I'm happy to make this motion, and I'm fully in favor of it. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any further debate, questions? And seeing none, I'll call to question that Council approves the municipal emergency management plan as presented. All those in favor? That is passed unanimously. Council, anything further for this item? If not, again, thank you, administration, for that report. That brings us to our information items for this evening. Council, any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Councillor Wong.
I'll move that we accept Council information packages number 1 and 2 for July 14, 2001.
Thank you, Council. We'll have Council. Any debate on this? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's also passed. And that brings us to our reporting, and I'll start to my right with Councillor Hawes.
To be honest, very little to report. We're on a break now from the library. I do want to mention, I believe I've stated before, but our digital numbers are up, due to the fact of COVID. We are Presently, you can get on reserved books. So there's a protocol that that takes place. You can call the library and find that out. We weren't lending out new books at this time, so we're still working towards that. Yeah, that's the status where we're at with the library. Other than that, I have nothing to report. Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Wong.
Not much to report myself as well, Mr. Mayor. Community Futures has been incredibly busy with managing the regional relief funds. I don't have specific numbers to report, but I can tell you that the staff at the Hinton office have been really working incredibly hard trying to manage all the demand and to process the applications. We have a board meeting next week, and anticipate I'll be able to bring a more detailed report in August.
Thank you.
Nothing else to report.
Thank you, Councilor Watt. Councilor Eustache.
Nothing to report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And for myself, Evergreens meeting, certain things, the primary topic of conversation was held in closed session, so I'll have more information in the future. It relates to a partnership potentially with the town of Hinton. Had a meeting with Minister McIver, with our fire chief, and Ms. Fox. That was quite interesting. Shared some concerns within the community. I don't know if Fire Chief Martins wants to speak at all regarding that. If not to put you on the spot, any comments, Fire Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I think it was a great meeting, and I look forward to hearing back from them from the things we put forward.
And to allude, and thank you for that, Fire Chief Martins. To allude on that, as an example, when you go down Eaton Drive, you cannot do a left turn for emergency purposes. If there were to be a response required immediately, you have to go through the community. It slows down time. These are requests that the fire chief in previous years has tried to do. So Minister McIver seemed like he was engaged into the conversation. And another one was looking at a more cohesive speed limit within town, where we have the 100, 70, and 60. And for those who don't follow Alberta transportation much, which I assume is almost everyone, we have to get permission to even consider looking into these things. As a municipality, especially us being a town and not a city, they dictate essentially everything. So, but it was a good preliminary conversation. And I think the fire chief did, and Ms. Fox did an excellent job at expressing some of the concerns in the community, and we look forward to having more information on that. And quickly, I've met with the head of the Healthcare Foundation, and there are conversations now, and we've heard this for many years, about the condition of our healthcare center and or also known as our hospital, although technically it's not a hospital, in getting potential funds. So once that develops a bit more, there'll be hopefully more information to come from council, but there is an appetite from the foundation to upgrade our hospital, because at the end of the day, it's aged and there are certain issues. So looking forward to have more information on that. But I do thank our MLA for being accessible for us to us in going down this path. And that covers it for myself. Ms. Olson.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. I don't really have anything to provide tonight by way of a report. Just want to thank everyone for the good discussion around some of the items we saw tonight and last week, including the solid waste management strategy. Appreciate the conversation, and this is an important change for our community, and we will support council in making the right decisions. So thank you for that.
Thank you, CEO Olson. And my apologies, I did forget. I spoke to it a few weeks ago. We have concluded our interviews for the CAO position. We are in a position now, as I alluded to at the beginning of the meeting, to work on an offer under the second item in camera. So I know the public is eager to find out that information. Hopefully in the coming week or so, we'll have more on that. So that was a little bit more update on our CAO recruitment committee. Thank you. Any administrative inquiries tonight, council? None. Any notices of motion? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to go in camera with a 6-minute break. Councillor Haas,
Make the motion to go in camera.
thank you. Council, all those in favor? That is passed. Thank you very much, everyone.